We are often too familiar with images of overdoses in homeless cities, and even the needles that plague our streets, and politicians always promising us that they'll put an end to the opioid epidemic. Some of our leaders have tried to tackle this issue, but still, many remain complacent to the opioid's long-lost cousin, the benzos. Benzodiazepine abuse has reached epidemic levels and results in poor outcomes. My name is Kayla Costa, and today I will be discussing the benzodiazepine epidemic. So, what are benzodiazepines? These drugs are known as a central nervous system depressant, and that is used to treat a wide range of illnesses such as anxiety, insomnia, muscle relaxation, relief from spasticity caused by central nervous system pathology, and as well as epilepsy. This little pill here that I have in my hands is a Xanax, and drugs like these are dispensed to about 112 million people as of 2007. I was given several months' supply of this right here and was told to take it as needed because it's a safe drug to use. And now, a year later, missing a dose of this here Xanax immediately brings the side effects of withdrawal. To bring into perspective just how easy it is to get addicted to this drug, quote, benzodiazepine withdrawal syndrome has been reported following attempts to withdraw even from low or therapeutic doses and has been compared to barbiturate and alcohol withdrawal. This experience is known to deter patients from future cessation attempts. So now that you have heard my personal connection to this epidemic, I will be discussing the real personal and societal effects due to the excessive usage of benzodiazepines. This can be contributed to the overprescription of such drugs, and I would like to present some alarming data that shows the damage of benzodiazepine overprescription and how you as a civic participant can be vital to the change. First, let's talk about how prevalent this issue of overprescription is, as well as personal testimony. And lastly, how this epidemic can affect our personal lives and the community around us. Benzodiazepines are being overprescribed, which is creating an environment for widespread addiction in society. This allows for an environment of misuse and abuse, and we need to apply pressure to our medical and lawmaking institutions to realize just how prevalent this issue is. In 2013, an estimated 22,000 people died of an overdose involving prescription drugs in the United States. The use of benzodiazepines were involved in approximately 31% of these fatal overdoses. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a disruption of the availability of critical mental health services, and as a result, many people have faced an increase in the use of alcohol and drugs. And that includes benzodiazepines that, quote, may have such a high potential for abuse and misuse during the pandemic. This can affect anyone. Take in, for example, the famous psychologist Dr. Jordan Peterson and his recent battle with benzo addiction. He describes his battle with the epidemic that is a catastrophe that benzodiazepines are being prescribed the way they are so broadly, and makes the message clear that benzodiazepines, they're probably not your friend, or if they are, they're not your friend for very long. He continues to describe this issue as a medically induced epidemic. It's a complete bloody catastrophe here. It's probably worse than the opioid epidemic. COVID-19 plays a role in this as well. The, quote, number of unique patients dispensed benzodiazepines was statistically and significantly higher than forecast estimates. With increasing prescriptions comes with an increased chance of creating more addicts. Quote, after long-term use, it is often difficult to discontinue benzodiazepines due to psychological and physiological dependence. We are fostering an environment that will create future addicts. So, you don't take these drugs, so why should you really care about this? Because obviously the next addict can be you. Quote, benzodiazepines are being used too liberally in our family practice for things such as acute anxiety. We should also look into the role of the pharmaceutical industry in facilitating this to continue, because they have, quote, techniques for marketing information and are so well sufficiently developed that results in significant changes in the mentality of both clinicians and the public. This industry endorses its use, so we should be expecting more people to be addicted to this drug in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Physicians have been taking some approaches to tackle this issue, but there are several things that we as individuals can do to curb this epidemic. Such things include involving lawmakers and constituents to bring to attention this issue in the form of petitioning, just as has been done to curb the opioid epidemic. With that being said, I would like to explore a feasible action that we as individuals can contribute to a positive outcome in this travesty. The first thing we can do is to educate ourselves and be aware of this issue. Then we can petition our lawmakers to make actions within their power. Physicians have been taking some actions as well, such as, quote, reducing inappropriate prescribing. This petition created by Evie Atchison calls for the ban of long-term benzodiazepine prescriptions in New Zealand to stop addiction and harm. This can bring momentum to the issue as Schmitz puts it, increases of substance abuse treatment programs as well as funding for these programs in the future will be an essential component in battling the growing problem. This momentum can bring accountability to our institutions that have allowed this epidemic to fester for so long. Quote, lawmakers and healthcare professionals will be tasked with reducing abuse while maintaining accessibility for appropriate patients. In India, for example, professionals conducted a study on how productive deprescribing, or the idea of a structured approach to drug discontinuation. The findings of this study show that well-established risk of chronic benzodiazepine use, coupled with good data, that they can be discontinued safely with strict monitoring. Here in the U.S., New York City, Hawaii, and Pennsylvania, for example, put a time limit on benzodiazepine prescriptions. Massachusetts also released a bill on restricted medications that also now includes benzodiazepines. This is a testament to the will of the people, accounting those empowered to take action. Some may argue, well, drug abuse in general is a personal choice, and others should not have to play a role in undoing that. And drug abuse is their problem, and it's the user's fault. Well, with benzodiazepines and opiates, the addiction really tends to start with the initial prescription, as it has with me. This epidemic is not a result of a personal action. This epidemic revolves around systemic institutional mishandling of prescribing these drugs, and therefore those very institutions play an accountable role in mending this epidemic. Now I would like to pose a scenario in which this epidemic is allowed to manifest any longer. You have trouble sleeping recently, so you go to the doctor and they prescribe you Valium to take at night. So you take the medication as directed and it works. But you come back a few weeks later to tell your doctor it's not working anymore. Then your doctor prescribes you a higher dose and you take it. And it works again until it doesn't. And during the next visit to your doctor, he tells you that, sorry, there's nothing else he can really do. He stops prescribing you your Valium and gives you something else. So 24 hours later, you find yourself in your bed, restless, drenched in sweat, and vomiting. And tomorrow, you have a seizure. You get prescribed diazepam, which is another benzo, at the emergency room to stop your seizures. You're now a benzo addict. But you want to stop and you don't know how. There's no rehab centers for this. You wonder if it was your fault that you got addicted. And now you're lost and you don't know what to do because there's nothing to do. You can't get any more prescriptions, so you turn to the streets. And your dealer gives you a Xanax, and you immediately eat those pills. And you never wake up because those pills were laced with fentanyl. This is the reality of the benzodiazepine epidemic. This benzodiazepine epidemic is such a multifaceted issue that I regret I cannot explore all the layers of it with you guys today. To summarize our discussion today, the United States is facing another epidemic, along with opiates and obviously coronavirus. Benzodiazepines are used to treat a variety of issues, but there has been a complacency by physicians and society as a whole about the harms that benzodiazepines pose. Increases of use have led to addiction, misuse, and unfortunately death. So we can hold these institutions accountable by petitioning lawmakers to change the trends of increasing benzodiazepine prescription. We need to draw attention to these alarming statistics and immediately pressure our lawmakers to allocate funding for programs that can benefit those who find themselves stuck in this epidemic. Remember, the next victim of this epidemic can easily be you or a loved one. So take action and advocate for the health and safety of society and yourself. Don't be the next statistic.